Hello everyone and welcome to this short course about Symfony and Hotwire. My name is Ahmed and I've been working with Symfony for about 10 years, but recently I discovered something really exciting, which is Hotwire Native. The short answer is a magical tool for Symfony developers to build mobile applications. Hotwire Native is another tool or library in the Hotwire stack. It completes what we already know and what we already have. We have Stimulus, we have Turbo, and now we have Hotwire Native, which completes this stack. Hotwire Native will help you as a Symfony developer or as a Symfony team to create web applications like SaaS or any web application and turn them into mobile applications. So in this video, we will turn a Symfony application, which is a basic, boring Symfony application. We have assets. We have stimulus controllers, we have our JS, and then we have our controller. We have branch controller, registration controller, and security controller. We have only one entity, which is branch related to the user. And if we want to see this in the browser, it's a boring Symfony applications. We have login, we can log in. And you see that we have here Turbo, so I will test. Okay, once we are logging in this Symfony application, it is responsive using Bootstrap, and I have a menu, I have add branch, I can add a branch. This application it's application that manages my favorite branches that I find in the cities that I visit. So let's add a branch. We can add a branch, name it for example branch it. Description: it's the best branch in Malaga. Okay, so I can give it latitude and longitude. We will see later why we have these two fields. We can import a file, a photo, and we can save. Okay, we have the list of branches. We can show it, we can update it, and so on. This application, it's a really basic Symfony application. With the help of Hotwire Native, we will turn this into a mobile application in iOS. So in this video, we will focus only in iOS, but the same thing we can do it in Android also with Hotwire Native. So what we will do is we will install Xcode, make sure that you have Xcode installed, and then we will create a new project with Hotwire Native to turn this application into a mobile application. So once we have Xcode installed, let's create a new project. Make sure that you click on iOS, then application, then next. In this step, give it a name. We will call it branch app. I will give it here com.imad, and the bundle identifier will be com.imad branch app. Make sure that you select storyboard and not Swift UI. Then language is Swift and the storage is none. Okay, you can include test if you want, but I will don't do it for now. So next, make sure to create a folder for it. I will call it branch app. Okay, so now Xcode will give us a new project with some new files like app delegate, screen delegate, view controller, and some launch screen, etc. etc. So the first thing that we will do is to add the package of Hotwire Native that will turn our Symfony application into mobile application. So let's go to File, Add Package Dependencies, and look for this Hotwire Native iOS. You can search for it with github.com Hotwire Native iOS in the search, and then you will find it. So I will add it to this package. Now make sure to choose the target, which is your target. If it's not selected by default, it's the app, add the package, and we will have it here as dependency. Feel free to go inside and see the code because it's an open source code and it's free code that you can check. Now that we have everything set up, let's start by turning our Symfony application into a Hotwire application. The first thing that we will do is to go to the scene delegator. For me, everything here is a boilerplate code. You can delete everything and then import Hotwire Native and import UI kit, which is the UI library for iOS. Then we will add a new variable that we will call root URL. This root URL will host our application URL. So to do this, we can use the URL class and then pass string. In this string, I will give it our application. So I will do this and come back to Xcode and put it here. Okay, so now we have the URL. We need to create our class that we removed. It will be class scene delegate. This scene delegate will return a UI responder. So we will add UI responder as before, and the type can be also UI window scene window scene delegate. Okay, our class is created. So let's create a variable that will host our UI window, which will be the window UI window. Then create our navigator, private let navigator. Everything that we do in this step is like a boilerplate code that we will not change next. It will be fixed for the application. It's just the bootstrapping of our application. So let's create the function scene, which take scene that is the UI scene and activity. So let's go to inside, and for the window we will attach the root view controller to our navigator root view controller. Navigator that root view controller. Okay, so the last thing is to route our URL to this navigator coming from Hotwire Native. So to do this, we will call navigator and we call the root. It accepts URL, so we will pass our URL here, our variable. So we have here URL can be null. So to fix this, we will add here this symbol, so it's clear now. Now we can run our application. This is everything that we need for beginning with Hotwire Native. Before to launch our application, make sure that we are pointing to login, not slash, to get directly into the login page or branch. So now that we have everything is set up and the code is here, we can launch and build our application. To do so, make sure to put branch here to be redirected to branches directly. Then build. The build is succeed. It will take some some seconds to launch. Okay, so now after the build is launching our application, we see that our application is turned automatically into a mobile application. We have a navigator here. By default, it's taking the title of the page, and we can connect. So let's start by connecting. Test.com. Then we can do test, and we sign in. One thing to notice is that in a web view, in a normal web view, we don't have some out of the box features like we have here. We have the title, and we have now the push to refresh. And when we do, for example, add a branch, it's a really native navigation, and we can go back with a native navigation that keeps a snapshot of the past navigator. We can do it again with update. We see that we are in the update. We have show also. We have now the basic and the beginning of a nice navigation, like a native navigation. But now let's go further and configure something really exciting with a small configuration that we call path configuration. We can change the behavior of the opening of this update or show buttons, etc. To do so, let's go to our code. I will show you what I already prepared in the code of our application, Symfony application. We created a Hotwire configuration controller. This controller it's expose a JSON that contains some configurations like settings and some rules. These rules will tell our Hotwire native package installed in our mobile application how to behave when a request is coming. For example, here we have for any pattern, pull to refresh is enabled like we did before. And I added something here, like for any pattern that is new $, open this pattern in a model. What is a model? Is just a native component that will render our web view. We will see it in 2 minutes. Okay, so once we have everything is set up, we have a simple controller, simple Symfony controller that return some configuration, and we have all the configuration reference in Hotwire native website references. Now it's the turn to map this or to call this configuration in our mobile application. To do so, let's go to app delegate. It's the delegator of our application. Same as before, let's remove everything and import Hotwire native, import UI kit. Then let's add our main app delegate. So class app delegate that will return a UI responder also, or a UI application delegate. UI application delegate. Also, this part it will be fixed normally for the rest of your application. So now inside our class, let's declare a function which is function application. So after creating the application code, this code will create a variable which is remote path config URL, which will point to our application. Let's make sure the real port /hotwire/configuration to get this information. We call hotwire load path configuration from server. What this is a smart function that will call our configuration, it will return a JSON. This JSON will be cached in our application so that even if we don't have connection, it will be here, and every launch of the application, this Hotwire load path configuration will check if there is a changes. If there is changes, it will call this our application to get the path, the new path configuration, and save it in our application. Okay, with this we are ready to launch again our application to see what will change. Okay, let's replace our code. The build is okay, the app is opening. Okay, everything is opening. Now we have the same behavior as before. We have branch index, which is the title of this index. Pull to refresh keeps working. Now let's add the branch. You see, with the configuration that we added, the branch now is opening in a new model, which is a native model. If you see the behavior, it's a native model, native iOS model. And the same thing is working for Android also. The same configuration will work with the same thing, with the same behavior in Android. Now we can add a new branch. Let's call it test branch. This is the best branch. Now, something really awesome that I didn't mention before is that Hotwire Native is turning by default some component into native component. For example, if we come back to our branch application, if I do add branch, I still have the navigation like before. It's the Symfony navigation in a web application. Now, if I click upload photo, I have a bunch of photos, but in our simulator, if I click upload photo, I have this native component. I can choose from the library, take photo or video, choose a file. So I will take from a library. It will open natively. Select this one, for example. I add it. Everything is working correctly. So when I save, everything is okay and refreshed, and I have the new test branch. Okay, now that we have path configuration and we can tweak our configuration to display some things in modal, make the pull refresh active or not based on the pages, etc. We need to have more control. To have more control, we can, for example, imagine that we need to hide the menu, the Bootstrap menu, and transform it to native menu. To do so, we can use Symfony to listen to a special user agent. The user agent is set by default with our Hotwire Native dependency, and then in our twig we can remove the parts that we don't need and control whatever we want with CSS or just twig. So to do so, we don't touch for this part the iOS code or the Android code. So in our Symfony application, I already created Hotwire listener, and this Hotwire listener it does one thing, is it listens to the request and it looks for the user agent, and then it checks if the user agent contains Hotwire Native. If it contains Hotwire Native, it makes a variable in the attributes, which is Hotwire Native value in key in the attributes. So now that we have this key is Hotwire Native set in the attributes, let's go to the base. We have here the navigation. What I did is just add a if not Hotwire Native. I display the menu so that I will see it always in the web. But if I am in the iOS application and if I'm planning to add a native application, native navigation in the iOS application, I can turn this part off. Let's see it in action. If I go back to our application, I can refresh. Everything is Good. I have my navigation. But now let's go to the simulator. In the simulator, if I pull to refresh, gone. The navigation is gone. So I can plan to add navigation tab here with iOS, and this tab can redirect to our URLs, and it will be a native application tabs. Okay, that's it for this part. Now let's go a little bit deep in our native application. To do this, we can add what we call bridge components. Bridge components are powerful to turn some web components, Stimulus or HTML components, into a native components. To do so, I will create a button that it will turn our login page or our login button into native login. Okay, so now we will focus on creating a bridge component that will replace this sign in button here in the login, and we will create a button here which will be a native login button. So to do so, the first thing that we need to do is to go in our code and install a new dependency, which is the Hotwire Native Bridge dependency in our JS. Okay, so to do so, we need to call Symfony console import map require Hotwire Native Bridge. So when we do this, it will import this library and it will add it. So okay. Next, I've already prepared a controller, which is a bridge button controller, which is a simple stimulus controller that extends from bridge component. When we extend from bridge component, we have a static component value. We put the name that we want to call our component. I will make it button and we will use it later in iOS. Then we have stimulus controllers, normal stimulus controllers, the connect function. In the connect function, we call the super connect function to trigger the super connect. The magic happening here, we create a title that we will grab from the attributes, and once our controller is connected, it will send the title to iOS via JSON, and then this bridge element that we connected, we can do whatever we want. In this case, we will click. Now that we have our bridge controller, let's go to our view when we want to use it. In login, I will go to the submit button, sign in. Then I added stimulus controller bridge button to call our controller. And then we have data bridge to control what we see in the iOS in the button. This is the title that will be displayed in the button. I will put here sign in now, for example. Okay, it will be different from the sign in here. Okay, once we have this, let's go to the Swift part. In the Swift part, we can create a new file. I will create a new empty file. I will call it button component.swift. In here, I will just pass a bunch of code and we'll discuss it later. So what's happening here? The component is identified by button. In the name, we identify it by button, as we did in stimulus controller to match it. On receive is called when a message is received from stimulus. Here the title object is unpacked to add native to the native button to the right side of the screen when it's tapped. The UI action is fired, replying to the message and calling the callback block. clicking the button. Finally, let's go to app delegate to register this component. To do so, we already registered and loaded the path configuration. Now, after this, we can add button component and register it. Okay, so let's rebuild our application. Replace. Okay, so now if we go to, for example, if we go see our application, now we have sign in now, which is really exciting because now it's a really native button. What's happening when I click? When I click, it triggered the same thing that it triggers the sign in button. So now let's change the title. To do so, we don't need to deploy a new version. Since we have here the data bridge title, we will change it here and make it sign in. And now if we go back and refresh this page, we have sign in button, which is controlled by our bridge title. This behavior and this way of building components, it will be the same if we want to build a drop-down, native drop-down, or any other component that we want to change from web component to native component. That makes it easy for us to change some parts in the web instead of what we already have in a simple web view. Now that we have this button here, I don't like this button, so to remove it, there is a smart way to do it, is only with CSS. You can go to app CSS and add a small code, which is like this. Data bridge components button, because we each time our controller, our bridge component is connected, it will add this attribute. So we will check if this attribute button it's here. If data controller is holding our button, then we display none. So let's see if it is working. Now if I refresh, okay, so now I did a mistake. It's not button, but the controller is named bridge button. So let's go back to our, okay, the button is gone. So now we have a mix of native and web view behavior in our application. Same thing when we will move to production and we will use the production, we will not have this profiler. And now I can test my login button. If I click test.com, test, sign in, I'm inside and everything is working as before. I have my navigation, which is in a model. In this case, in the show, it is correct. Now I will show you something very special. If we go to our web, I will make sure that everything is working correctly. Okay, everything is okay. If we go to branch, everything is looking correct. In the web, I still have my navigation. I still have the show like this. Let's see now if I make a mistake, or I just dump something that will return 500 status code. So let's go to our branch controller and let's check for show and dump, for example, dd test. In the web, I will have something like this. If I click show, I have dd test. The status code is 500. So now in the mobile, if I click show, it will give me nice and clean status code error loading page. Now, same thing. If I go and create a button, if I go back here, let's go, for example, to our login. No, let's go for example to branch show, and I will here, instead of back to list, I will give it a path that doesn't exist. This is fake. Okay, so now the back to list contains this is fake, which is 404 status code. Let's go back now, and instead of doing this, I do show. If I click on back to list now, error, and a nice clean error, and we can customize it if we want. But now if we have the same error in the web part, it will be rendered like this. It's a simple Symfony error, or it's in production, it's one line of error. With this, we did a nice overview of what we can do with Hotwire Native and Symfony. If you have any question, feel free to add them in the comments. What I want you to know is that with this approach, we can have native components on top of WebView, and we can also have native screens. If you need to see this in action, make me know in the comments. I can maybe add a new video to discuss how to create native screens, etc. And this approach can make you go from a web application into mobile application that will run and have a look and feel like a native application in iOS and Android. Thank you for watching. See you next time.